A warm welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series on Governance Demystified. In the first part, we understood what governance is and what are the key guiding principles of a good governance framework: accountability, transparency, fairness, and responsibility. We also went through building blocks of governance which come together to deliver organizational objectives. In this session, we will be delving on different governance processes and how we can ensure its effective implementation. So let's jump right in. Different governance components, foundational documents, policies and procedures, risk management, etc., which we saw in session 1, come together to form a framework. There are several global frameworks which are recognized as a standard. These frameworks can be used as a foundation by any organization and be built on in line with the specific requirement of the business. One of the most recognized governance framework is G20 OECD Principles of Corporate Governance, which provides guidelines aimed at improving the performance of companies and economic growth with a focus on transparency, accountability, and fairness. This framework emphasizes the importance of effective governance in promoting market integrity and stability and is endorsed by the G20 countries. Among other areas, it stresses on ensuring timely and accurate disclosure of all material matters of the company and promotes ethical behavior and corporate governance practices that contribute to the long-term success of the company. Next is Cadbury Report of UK, issued in 1992. This is a governance-related guidance which was aimed to address corporate governance issues following several high-profile corporate scandals in the UK. The Cadbury report stressed on clear division of responsibilities, establishment of audit committees to oversee financial reportings and effectiveness of controls, and emphasized the importance of having a majority of non-executive directors on the board to ensure independent oversight. The report also introduced the comply or explain approach, where companies are required to either comply with the code or provide explanations for non-compliance. Next is Sarbanes-Oxley Act of the US, commonly known as the SOX requirements. This is a US legislation which was rolled out in 2002, aimed at improving the corporate governance and accountability. It has introduced stringent requirements for financial reporting and internal controls. The SOX compliance requirements mandate that the CEOs and the CFOs must certify the accuracy of financial statements and reports, and that the companies must disclose material off-balance sheet liabilities and obligations. India is not behind in establishing and adopting governance principles which are second to none. SEBI has established principles of corporate governance in the year 2000 itself as an outcome of recommendations by the Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. These principles provide guidelines for corporate governance practices in India with a clear focus on transparency, accountability, and ethical behavior. These principles have been incorporated into various regulatory frameworks, including the Companies Act of 2013 and various SEBI LODR regulations of 2015. One key aspect of principles of corporate governance is a strong emphasis on balancing the interests of various stakeholders, including shareholders, employees, and the community, rather than focusing solely on the shareholder value. Now let's look at some key governance processes. Now that we know about various governance frameworks which we can use as a benchmark, let us go deeper into some key governance processes. First one is setting up of foundational documents. These are the documents which captures the values which drive the company and the company's commitment to adhere to these values. Such foundational documents acts as a source of inspiration or direction to all strategic and operational activities of the organization. While drafting or revising their own code of conduct documents, companies often use code of conduct of other entities in same industry or even prominent corporates in other industries as a benchmark. Next important set of governance procedures is development of policies and processes. Policies are established to provide guardrails to the operational activities of the organization. The processes are created to set up standard set of activities which helps in achieving the goals in a repeatable and person independent manner. Process documents often contain templates and formats for standard capture of key details. The policies and processes documents are live documents and are reviewed periodically to ensure continued alignment with the business environment and the changing requirements of the regulations. Organization is exposed to multiple risks: operational, reputational, financial, and so on. Hence, the risk management processes form the next set of key governance processes. These includes processes for identification of risk, its evaluation on likelihood and impact parameters, prioritization and identification of adequate controls to mitigate the risk to the extent possible. Risk environment is a dynamic environment, and hence it is critical that new risks are identified or changes in its evaluation parameters also assessed from time to time. It is equally important that the controls are periodically tested for its adequacy and effectiveness. Fourth set of key governance processes are related to establishing compliance and ethics programs. The primary goal of such programs is to prevent, detect, and respond to any breach of internal or external compliance requirements. This requires certain proactive measures like identifying all compliance requirements applicable to the organization, having these aligned to identified employees or roles, and tracking the conformances on an ongoing basis. Coordinated efforts are needed to ensure that all the stakeholders concerned are aware of the compliance requirements expected from them, thus reducing possibility of any violation. One important element in this domain is setting up of appropriate channels for reporting breaches of code of conduct or a violation of compliance requirements. Having a fair and objective investigation into the concerns raised through these channels, followed by visible actions, helps build trust and faith in such vigilance mechanisms. Implementing governance processes. Now that we are aware of key governance processes, let us now explore an effective strategy for their implementation. First step is to clearly define the governance objectives. While as an organization, we may want to achieve many things, it helps to clearly outline what we aim to achieve with our governance framework. This could include risk mitigation, stakeholder confidence building, and regulatory compliance. Next step would be to define the roles and responsibilities across the organization. This requires establishing clear job roles, job descriptions, and the deliverables. In order to avoid any frauds or errors, segregation of duties is done in a careful manner, and delegation of authority or DOA is established to ensure that the organization is able to take timely decisions while deftly balancing business agility with due diligence. After establishing roles and responsibilities, the organization will move towards clearly defining the boundaries of its operations. This is done by developing its policies and procedures. Policies clearly communicates the organization's values, expectations, and requirements, and sets up a framework within which the procedures and the processes are developed. Processes help operationalize the policies by providing a clear step-by-step guide on how to perform the task and activities. Processes are often combined into a handbook, and just like a recipe book, they help ensure that the tasks are performed consistently, efficiently, and accurately, regardless of who is doing those tasks. Parallelly, the organization establishes its board of directors and business value streams as well. The constitution of board of directors, its subcommittees, and the roles and responsibilities are governed by law, most importantly the Companies Act 2013 in India. They provide strategic direction and oversight to the organization. One critical responsibility of the board is to safeguard the interest of the shareholders and the company. The strategy and the vision of the board of directors is operationalized by different business value streams. These are led by professional management personnel who have clearly defined multi-year and annual operating plans, which will take the company a step closer to its goals. The progress on these plans needs to be critically reviewed periodically through a well-established reporting and review mechanism for course correction and any interventions which may be necessary. Organization also establishes a risk management framework which will drive all its risk management practices. It can shape its risk management framework using globally recognized frameworks like COSO, Enterprise Risk Management Framework, and ISO 31000 as a benchmark. Apart from defining the risk processes, such exercise usually involves creating a risk evaluation criteria, risk prioritization approach, risk heat map, and control testing protocols, etc. Collectively, all the components of risk management framework help establish a comprehensive approach to managing various types of risks, ensuring the organization can effectively navigate uncertainties and maintain resilience during difficult times. All the operational activities need to be periodically verified to provide an assurance to the stakeholders that the organization is operating effectively, ethically, and in compliance with the relevant regulatory requirements. This is done by establishing regular audit protocols and review rigor. Audits play a crucial role in uncovering potential risks and vulnerabilities in the processes, allowing for proactive risk management. Audits and business reviews also aid in identifying inefficiencies and introduce interventions and contribute to the operational effectiveness. Most importantly, regular scrutiny through audits and reviews promotes transparency, enhancing the stakeholder confidence in the organization's integrity as well as its capability to achieve its goals. Finally, with all the governance components in place, effort needs to now be made to take care of one softer aspect of governance, fostering the culture of safe, ethical, and compliant business conduct. It is obviously not possible to shape such a culture in a day. It requires years of conscious effort, supported by demonstrable action to create an environment conducive to openness and ethical business decisions. However, it must start from day one, and right tone must be set from the top. Organizations tend to follow what their leadership demonstrate through their behavior rather than just what they say, and hence it is crucial that the leaders set good examples. Now let's go to governance maturity. It is not sufficient just to establish a governance framework. Just as the organization attempts to improve its processes and build on its achievements, similarly, the governance framework must also respond to the changing needs of the business environment and strive for improving its capability to deliver on the governance objectives. Starting point in this journey is level 0 or initiated. Here, no standard or documented governance has been defined. The business practices are ad hoc and majorly person dependent. Next is level 1, defined. Here, the governance requirements are defined but not consistently understood or fully implemented. Level 2 is adopted, where the governance requirements are understood and adopted by the individuals and the teams. Next is level 3, operating. Here, the governance requirements and the practices are embedded into day-to-day working consistent with defined requirements. Level 4 is govern. Here, the formal governance mechanism is in place and it follows the know it and show it approach. Level 5 or optimizing is an ongoing state of governance where proactive and continuous monitoring, change management and improvements to make governance more effective and efficient have been put into the place. Let's do a quick recap on what we learned today. We started the session by looking at some globally adopted governance frameworks like the G20 OECD principles of corporate governance, Cadbury report, SOX regulations and SEBI's principles of corporate governance, which can be used as benchmarks. Then we looked at understanding key governance processes, including setting up of foundational documents, establishing policies and procedures, defining risk management processes, and driving compliance and ethics programs. After that, we saw steps of implementing governance processes, right from defining governance objectives to fostering a culture of ethics and transparency on an ongoing basis. Finally, we looked at how governance practices of an organization travel on governance maturity journey from level 0, which is initiated, 1 defined, 2 adopted, 3 operating, 4 govern, and level 5, which is an ongoing continuous journey optimizing. We have an end of the session activity for you. Using what we have learned today, identify the maturity level of different governance processes in your own organization. Meet you in the third and the final part of this series, where we will be understanding the benefits of good governance and some common challenges faced during the implementation of governance practices. We'll also delve on why things go wrong and what we can do as leaders to correct them. Finally, we'll also see some best practices which can be replicated and certain trends which are defining the future of governance. Thank you and see you soon in the third part.